So you can train teamwork in a physical space. And so this is my belief, this is our belief, is that the content can happen elsewhere. So you don't have to feel terrified that you're letting those things go. Sure, content will happen. Nothing's wrong with having kids learn stuff. But when you let it be flexible, when you let the kids choose, it's amazing what happens. Imagine this. You're in a biology class. The kids are studying whatever, okay? You're going along, and all of a sudden, in the classroom, one of the children's parents or family members gets cancer. And everyone knows about it. And everyone's concerned about it, right? The class all of a sudden is very excited / anxious about what is this cancer thing, right? We've heard about it in the news, we don't really understand it. You have an option. You could push forward with your curriculum. You can continue on with plants and studying the ocean, all these wonderful things. I love biology, don't get me wrong. Or you could devote as much time as the kids wanted to studying cancer. If they were excited, grab that moment. Talk about cells, talk about the history. Go find scientists in your area, Skype with them if they're not in your area. You will create a learning moment that will change these kids, and you're honoring their interests, right? You're cultivating their love of learning, right? I've learned over my years that I'm looking for moments in kids, right? That my job as a teacher is I'm looking for this flash of excitement, and I want to foster that, right? So much of my job is just waiting. I'm waiting, and then I see it, and you get excited, and then I feed that. And I feed that, and I feed that. Because those are the fires that go on and create people who learn for the rest of their life. Sure, I can cover a lot of content and continue on, but if I miss that moment, I feel like I've missed something really important. And so the beautiful thing about pushing back and why you won't see so much content at High Tech High is we're creating space. We're giving freedom to the teacher to say, hey, if you notice your kids are really excited, it's okay to scrap your plan and take that moment. It's okay to say, you know, we were going to do this, but you're so excited about Japanese history, why don't you just spend the next few weeks and do this awesome project and go to the museum, and here's an expert you can talk to and learn about it, and just go for it. And do something high quality, right? And do something really well, but do what you want to be doing, not what I had planned previously. Now, if you don't know what you want to do, then come along with me, right? Let's do European history. Let's study about America or whatever. But when you see that fire, having the courage to take that and having the space from your administrators to let you take that on. So, that was my argument. Luckily we have the internet. So here's one more argument to make you feel safe about letting go of content. So first of all, it's on the internet, it's probably done better. Secondly, there's some research to show that the ability of kids to fill in the right bubble, to get the right answer, is not correlated well with creativity and confidence and entrepreneurship. The things kids need to survive the 21st century is not doing what they're told or memorizing a set of data and regurgitating it, right? This is Yang Zhao at the top. If you want to research him, he has 2 books, I believe. He has a great website. I highly recommend checking him out. He's at the University of Oregon in America, and he's a professor. And this is one of the data sets that he shows. And what it is basically, in the red, you'll see PISA scores. So high scores are high PISA scores. But in the blue, you'll see these metrics of entrepreneurship. So there's an organization that measures this kind of stuff. And they were looking at things like confidence, creativity, all these 21st century skills. And what you'll notice is that they're different, right? You'll notice that the better kids are at filling in the right bubble, of finding the right answer. Because think about it, when you're looking for the right answer, right, you're not thinking about something creative. And on the other side of the graph, you'll see countries that are less proficient, that do less well on those find the right answer tests, tend to be the countries that are more creative, more entrepreneurial. And in this day and age where everything that can be automated will be automated, the computers are taking over. However, there are some jobs left, and there will be some jobs left. But those jobs will be jobs that require creativity, teamwork, leadership, entrepreneurship, right? And that's what we need. If we want to give our kids a chance, 10 years, 15 years, 30 years in the future, we've got to consider this. Next slide. All right, so coming back to what we had our conversation about, the importance of knowing your why. This is from Simon Sinek. He is one of my favorite thought leaders in today's world. He's very passionate about making sure you know why you're doing what you're doing. If you're very clear on why you're doing what you're doing, it makes the choices of how to get there so much clearer and so much easier. So at the center is, why are we doing this? And if we think we're trying to prepare kids for this crazy 21st century, this 21st century that is demanding all these different skills, if that's really our goal, then how we get there is by doing very different things in the classroom. You begin to think about interacting with kids differently. You think about having different assignments. You think about having different endpoints. And what you do will look very different, right? What you see in the classroom will look very, very different. So what are those different things that you see in the classroom? Okay, at High Tech High, when you walk in the doors, a couple things you'll notice is that everything is focused on these 21st century skills. If you ask why something is happening, you will generally be able to say, oh, that's because of one of these 21st century skills. You'll see lots of open space. You'll see these transparent walls. You'll see open doors, right? And if you go to Google or Apple or Facebook, you'll see that in their structure, these open floor plans, kids working together, people working together. It's a focus on teamwork and collaboration. It's creating opportunities for people to share ideas and not isolating teachers in classrooms and isolating kids on their own. Another thing you'll see is lots of student freedom. You'll see this student-centered world where kids are off all over the place, doing what they want to be doing or what they need to be doing, right? And at first, this is very disconcerting. Bernardo was telling me when he first came to High Tech High, he walked in the doors and he's like, what is going on here? Is there any learning happening? Yes, there is, but it's very different learning. It's a different kind of learning. It's not the learning you're used to seeing, and I think it's very shocking for visitors at first, but then after a few days, or even a few hours, you get it. Another thing you'll see is kids actually go out. Like, we get them prepared, we try to make them independent, and then, if you want kids to develop real-world skills, what could be better than sending them off into the real world, right? So every kid in their junior year spends a month of school. So they're missing a month of content, a month of teaching, to go and actually be at a job, to work at a hospital, to work at an engineering firm, to work with a mentor who hopefully can teach them about what it's like to be in the real world. They can shadow someone. If you think you want to be a lawyer, go and shadow a lawyer. Go see what it's like to be in a law firm. And one of two things will happen, and I've seen both. In one situation, you see a kid get super excited. He follows the guy around, he does the work, and he's like, this is what I want to do with my life. This is amazing. And I've had other kids do the same thing and be like, I do not want to do this. I do not want to spend my life doing this. Both are incredibly valuable, right? And in that month, I see so much growth in their sense of personal value and confidence, right? I see so much growth in them as individuals. When they spend a month working with adults, being treated like an adult, they see themselves differently. They see themselves in a way they could have never gotten from my classroom, right? And this is the idea of what is the value added? I think of my poorest kids. So I think you mentioned at the beginning that half of our kids are below the poverty line, right? So at High Tech High, we are a random lottery. So we are random kids from all around San Diego. We have kids who are wealthy, we have kids who are poor, we have kids from different races and backgrounds. Many of our kids come from Spanish-speaking homes. So it's a very diverse mix. And what I've noticed is that these internships, a lot of the things we do at High Tech High, but in particular the internships, create a lot of equity. And the reason for this is, when you have a kid who has a single parent working their butt off to get them through, right? And that parent didn't go to college, and they're not a wealthy family, right? That parent can't give that kid entree into high quality jobs, into a high class system, right? The benefit of having parents who are wealthy, who are well educated, is the contacts. I never realized this till just a few years ago, that so much of the achievement gap in our countries, certainly in America, and I suspect it's probably true in Colombia, the achievement gap is really a social capital gap. It's a networking gap. It's who you know. You've seen those kids in your class. That kid who is poor, who comes from a tough background, but he is a hard worker, and he is a smart kid, and he's a creative kid, right? And you know he can do great things, if only he was given a chance. But the reality is, he probably won't be, because no one knows to give him a chance. But when you give him an internship with someone, you become the doorway. You say, hey, give this kid a chance, right? You have to develop that trust. But once you do, you give him a chance, and then that person, that hospital manager, that engineering firm is like, wow, that kid is amazing. I'm going to write him a recommendation. Now that kid not only has the internship, he has a reference. He has a reference his parents could have never given him. And my dad and my mom could give me those connections, right? But then I see in my kids, they don't have that advantage. And so I have to help give it to them. And internships are an amazing way to do that. In fact, anytime you can get kids to interact with adults is an amazing equity opportunity. If you're doing a project, and back to the kid who's really excited about Japanese history, right? And he goes and he does a Skype call with someone, a museum expert, right? And all of a sudden they have a relationship. Maybe he goes and visits them. Maybe he creates a product that's really awesome, and that person visits them. All of a sudden, there's an adult, there's an expert, there is someone of high status who can vouch for that kid, who says this kid is worth something, right? Having that on their resume is huge, right? Sometimes it's almost too much, but I know why we do it. I get it. I meet with my staff every morning, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays before school. We have long one-day meetings. We spend weeks before the school year starts meeting, right? We meet a lot. We meet because we want to do teamwork well. We know that if we don't do it well, we can't teach the kids to do it well, right? So we train ourselves. We train how to give feedback. We train how to work with each other. We train how to communicate with each other. And through that training, we create a more functional system between ourselves. And then in our classrooms, we have the kids' team. We put them in teams, and we help train them to work well in teams. And this is one of the most high-value skills. If you look at the list of desirable attributes of things businesses want, almost always in the top 3 is teamwork. And if you know that's true, then shouldn't that be a huge focus? Shouldn't that be a goal of yours, that you are developing that actively almost all the time? Another thing you'll see is constant improvement. We believe in an engineering model where you try something out and then you get feedback and you make it better. This is how we work as a staff, and this is what we try to do with our kids. You do something, and then you get feedback, and I help you make it better. And then you do it again, and we get to make it better. And again, and make it better. And there's this quote that I love, that you'll either win or you learn. There is no failure at High Tech High. It's just a learning moment, right? It's a learning moment that you can then grow from. And there's something they say in Silicon Valley, up in America, which is one of the most innovative places in the world. There's this saying of fail faster. Fail faster. The reason you want to fail faster is you'll never make something great the first time. The iPhone, the first iPhone, if you actually go back and look at it, is a piece of crap. It's not very good, certainly by today's standards. But if they hadn't made the first one, they would never have made the 6th one, which is pretty good, right? So this idea that you want to get those iterations out. So get kids started, get yourself started, right? Get going now with anything. Just get your feet wet and then make it better. Then get feedback. And don't worry about failing, right? It's one of the most important lessons that entrepreneurs have. People who succeed in business today understand this. They understand it's about getting out there, making it happen, and then getting feedback on it. And the last one is this simple, flexible schedules. So at High Tech High, in order to do all this crazy stuff I've been talking about, in order to take kids out and have them meet with experts and send them on internships and do all this crazy stuff, we have these incredibly simple structures. We have a few teachers, we have very few classes, we get them all day, and we can do whatever we want, right? As long as we communicate as a team. So for instance, if like the 5 of us right here, right, you would be like my team, right? And if we want to do something cool with the kids, like let's just go to the zoo, let's do that on Friday, you're doing a biology project, that would be great. All we need to do is get the parent's signature, we just go. We don't need anybody else. As long as our boss is okay with it, and it always is, right, we just go. If there's an opportunity we want to take advantage of, we just do it. My engineering teacher this year, okay, he had a bunch of kids. One of his goals was to have all the seniors apply to this thing called the Conrad Challenge, which is our space program, NASA. They challenge kids to solve world problems. And the kids have to produce a high-quality solution. They have to research it, study it, talk to experts, and then they have to create a proposal. And they send it off, and if they get accepted, and they make it to the semifinals, they get to go to NASA. They get to go to Florida and present in front of the judges. And we had, of the kids who did it, almost half of them made it to that level. So we shipped out half of the kids, and in that time when he was over there in Florida, and having the kids present for NASA, we, the team behind, we just made it work. We just, between the rest of us, we just kind of took the kids in the classrooms and made it all happen, and we just had to adjust because we knew that experience was so good for those kids, we're just going to make it work at home. We're going to find a way to make it work. And that's kind of how we do it. If it's a great experience for kids, and we all agree it is, we're just going to make it happen. We're going to find a way. We're going to muddle through. And that's the attitude, right? But we only can do that because the structures allow for that. If we do something crazy as a senior class, it doesn't affect the other classes. I don't teach any other preps. I have one prep. I have one responsibility. It's to teach math really well to seniors. That's it, right? However I decide to do that, my engineering teacher has one goal, to teach engineering really well to all the seniors. There's no tracking, there's no other classes, kids have no choice, but in those classes we're able to do some really interesting things. This is a fantastic quote. I remember sharing it with you guys when I was in San Diego, or you were in San Diego with me. Larry is the CEO, the founder of the schools. And this is so true, and this is so powerful. This is something to think about in your schools, in your classrooms. When teachers feel overwhelmed with the complexity of their job, with all the preps, and all the content, and all the different things they have to do, and all the kids they have to teach, they just try to survive, right? The thing that breaks my heart, and what I've seen in talking to literally thousands of educators from all across the world, is that we have the right teachers. Teachers go into teaching for the right reasons. Educators are across the board wonderful people because they want to help kids, but very powerful expectations. And then the freedom to do what I think is best. If I see an opportunity, if I think this is best for kids, I am empowered to make that happen. I am not held down by the structures. The structures free us rather than suppress us. Right? And this one simple idea of creating simplicity and trusting your teachers, setting really high goals for them also, and trusting them is so, so powerful. So one last project, I know I'm probably running late on time, but yeah, trying to finish. Okay, I'm going to finish up. One last project I want to share. Okay, it's okay? I appreciate that. But he's the boss, so I got to listen. So, Veterans Village. This is my favorite project. Okay, one of my favorite projects. My English teacher. So there's 5 of us on the senior team. One of them is more responsible for sort of creative writing in English. One of them tends to do more like literature and essay. One of them is engineering. One of them is art, and then I'm math. Okay, and the 5 of us, we do everything. And if we need to cover something else, obviously we cover it between ourselves. But I love that idea of one simple team with diverse skills responsible for a group of kids. Anyway, so Stephanie is my English teacher, and she was working with Jeremy, my art teacher, and they decided to come up with this project. Okay? They decided to take advantage of a local opportunity. They were doing a project on story, on the idea of the hero and war. And they wondered if they could use San Diego. So in San Diego, we have lots of veterans. Our veterans have gone off to war. As you know, America is usually involved in a war somewhere, which is sad but true. Sometimes we're doing really good things. But anyway, our veterans go off, and they come back, and they often come back broken. They come back damaged physically and psychologically. And so to care for them, we have these places set up where they go to sort of try to get better. And one of them is called Veterans Village, and it's very nearby San Diego. And so what Stephanie decided to do, she said, I'm going to take all my kids, and I'm going to see if I can get them to go to the village and actually hear real stories from real people who have been heroes, who have been to war. And she did that, and it was incredible. The kids went over there, they recorded a long conversation, sometimes an hour or more, with these veterans. They heard their story. And they came back, and they took that story, and they transcribed it all out in writing. And they looked at it and they analyzed it. And they tried to figure out what are the most powerful moments. What is the essence of the story? And they pulled out those pieces and they made a poem. And then they took that poem and they used that as inspiration to make an art piece in the art class. And they took this art piece and they took this poem and they invited the veterans, just like you, pretty similar group actually, to come and listen. And the kids read the poems and they gave the pieces to the veterans. And it was incredible. This is something that one of the veterans said. He said, you listened. You didn't judge. You didn't try to fix us. You listened to us, and you cared. To be listened to and to be heard without being judged, to us, was to be honored. Your words and your art have sacred places in our hearts. And one of the students responded to this. They said, from hello, my name is, to the actual reading of the poems, it was no longer a class project. It felt almost like it was my duty to share her story. Right? And of course, at the end of it, I mean, there's like tears everywhere, and like it was an amazing experience. It was incredibly healing for the veterans and incredibly moving for my seniors. They will never look at war again the same way. They will never look at the world the same way. And there is a sense of pride and passion. When you do something meaningful, when you affect someone's life, that changes you. Ron Berger is a friend of mine and the author of one of the best books on education ever. It's called The Ethic of Excellence. It's a very, very short, small book. I would highly recommend reading it with your staff. It's his adventures on how to create kids to have high quality work, how to get kids to do high quality work. The quote is basically, when kids do something that is special, that is high quality, it changes them. When they affect someone's life in a meaningful way, it changes them. And this is doubly true, again, for our low-income kids. When you have a kid who comes from a background, and he sees the people around him, and he sees his parents, and he thinks, I'm not someone who could be that. I'm not someone who could affect the world in that way. I'm not someone who could be successful in that way. Right? You see this in them. You see them live under this weight, this identity, this feeling they're not good enough because of where they grew up in. However, when they come to school and they do something like that project, or they produce a high-quality thing, or they work with an expert, and at exhibition they're sharing out, and someone of high status says to them, wow, that's impressive, you did something great. It challenges their worldview. It challenges them to see themselves in a different way, and it changes their life. I've seen it every year at High Tech High, that these kids who do not believe that they are worthwhile, who do not believe that they could succeed at that level, when they have those experiences, they cannot deny that reality, and it changes the way they view themselves, and it changes them forever. And these are things, again, you cannot click on the internet and get. You can click on the internet and learn about history, but you cannot click on the internet and have a life-changing experience. But we can create those experiences. It doesn't happen all the time at High Tech High, but it happens a lot of the time. And if you work really hard, you will create a lot of those moments for a lot of kids, which will transcend.